Hello all, a nice day here, bringing you another knife review, and as you can see, this is sort of a dull review, but not really. Because these are the same knives. And I'll explain my reasoning for having two of these, but I really don't have to explain my reason because these are, let's just say, good knives. You can end here if you want, they're pretty good. These are the CJRB Pyrite Lites in blue FRN. I don't love plastic, but I will say CJRB, whatever they're doing to their plastic is nice. It is well finished. It is very consistently executed, and it feels more solid and substantial. I know it has full steel liners, but even then, it still feels better than most. It's not that bad. And of course, I suppose the main event here is this rose gold finished blade. I had always assumed that rose gold was proprietary to ProTech. I guess not, or this is fundamentally different in its application style. I would imagine the ProTech Sapphire is still probably proprietary. I think their Sapphire might even be considered as some sort of DLC. I'm not sure. That's a different knife. Well. We're here to talk about this one, and this one is a budget knife. As you can see, these are button locks. And before we start talking about value, let's get specifications and comparisons and everything out of the way. The blade length going to the front of the scale is 3 3/8, so 3.4-ish. The scale, or the handle, I should say, is 4 3/8, just a bit shy of that. The overall length is 7 5/8. It sort of falls in just off those even numbers, but it's sort of like a 7.65-ish overall. We'll do a quick comparison so you know what the heck I'm talking about, so we can sort of see where these slightly off numbers fall. Comparison knives are the CVV Elementum, or the small knife, and CVV Conspirator for the large, or full-size knife, not large. This thing falls pretty much directly in between both of them. It is neither small, it is not truly full-size, it is pretty perfect for EDC size, though. It has a decent presence. It's about as tall as the Conspirator Open. And it is, I believe, similarly tall when closed, though only really at this hump. Everything else is thinner than the Conspirator. Making it a pretty easy to carry knife, just a little bit of height there in one area. It's also a pretty thin knife. There's not a ton of it's compact is what I'm trying to say. It's easy in the pocket. It's no problem. I don't think anybody would have a problem carrying this thing. Especially at 2.86 ounces. We are under an ounce. We are more than an inch for every ounce. So the ratios are really good. You can thank the plastic for that, which you normally would say, ooh, plastic, but again, this is much better than I expected for plastic. Let us take a quick look at the handle thickness. At its thickest is 439 thousandths of an inch, so we're decently under even half an inch. It's pretty comparable to the CVV Elementum. The blade stock thickness is thinner than even the Civivi Elementum at 97 thousandths. So we're looking at basically 100 thousandths of an inch. Quite thin. Behind the edge should also be quite thin. Reasonably so. I think that might be a little bit thicker than the Elementum, but the Elementum has a hollow grind on it and is pretty darn thin. But still, 16 thousandths behind the edge-ish. It's thin. It's got room to drop. It'll cut. It's a slicer. It's not going to be a problem in that regard. It'll perform excellently, and it's going to look good doing it with that finish. Hardware check. T8. T8 pivot. T8 body screw. T6 clip, unfortunately. I don't know why they didn't just carry through and finish it off with everything. But yeah, the hardware, the things that you're going to have to mess with most likely, more often than not, are T8. The clip, yes, it is an ambidextrous design because button locks are pretty easily accessible for left-handed people. They offer you the mounting position, and so you can swap that. But you probably will only have to do that once. And this clip is pretty good in terms of everything you want out of a budget clip, so most likely you'll never encounter interacting with the clip and will only have to worry about the main hardware, which is T8s. If you have to swap it, just have good tools, basically. Okay, so this knife is on bearings. It is, as I said, a button lock. I'm not a super fan of plunge locks. They are inconsistent. They are prone to being weaker than a lot of other locks. I have given these knives some pretty good shots, and they've held up just fine. So they've done a good job with their button lock. There is a little bit of stick. That may or may not phase out, but for budget button locks, I like a little bit of stick. It just usually reinforces the fact that the lock's probably doing its job. It's not making it any harder to disengage. The way to actuate this knife is you can do it with the button, or you can do it with these thumb studs, which are quite nice. They look small, but they're not pokey, they're not sharp, they're well placed, they're very usable, and they're quite nice, as I said. I like them. They did a good job with these thumb studs. The stop pin is right here behind that, and it is completely irrelevant because the plunge lock itself is the stop pin in the open position, and it's way back here, nowhere near the edge, not causing a problem. And also not causing a problem is the plunge ground on this thing, which is like back here. You have an absolute ton of life. You can cut in more if you ever get down that far into the blade, but it shouldn't be a problem. I didn't mention the blade steel, which is Artisan's ARRPM9. I always say AARPM9, but it's technically, there's two R's, not A's. It's a decent performing budget steel. And this coating aside from being fingerprinty, may offer up even a little bit more protection to the blade. If it's anything like the one that Protect does for the rose gold, which it may or may not be. It should offer some protection. The clip has good retention. It is a deep carry clip with flat screws. It is easy in and out of the pocket. The bill is a continuous rise, and in the hand, it is comfortable. You almost don't feel this. I mean, you feel it a little bit, but that's the case with most budget clips. This is honestly even better than normal. I don't feel it particularly a lot. I pretty much don't feel it at all in the choked up position, which is very comfortable as well. And I feel completely safe and locked in. More than enough handle to get a full grip. And, nice touch is, there is a slight contour to this handle. It's slight, there's not a ton of it, but it's there. And you notice it and can appreciate it. The texture is not aggressive, but it is slightly meaningful. It doesn't really offer a lot, but it does offer some sort of tactile element, so you know it's there, and it sort of orients you a little bit. I have, if you're wondering what I'm doing, there's a little white dot there that just will not come out of there. I don't know what that is. I'm going to get that out. Enjoy looking at this knife while I'm doing that. Yeah, so Ergo's great. Steel, good budget steel. There's really not any serious miss on this design. They did a great job. CJRB, yes, this is a good one. I know that the Pyrites have been pretty darn popular, and I can see why. This is a really good knife design that can do most things that you need it to do. It's a great EDC, it's just a good knife. So, my thoughts on this knife after using, well, I've only used this one. And I guess I have to go into explaining why I have two in the first place. And that's pretty simple. Because that one is off-center. Considerably. This one, the second one I got, to double check and check the quality control, because I don't really have many CJRBs, is perfectly centered. There's no play in either of them. I cannot get this knife to center up. Button locks, not budget locks, but well, I guess it is a budget lock. Button locks in general, I think, are pretty hard to center. I've never really found a way to consistently do it. They don't really play quite the same. Same with crossbar or access style locks. They can be fidgety too, as far as difficulties to center. If you have a way to center, or you know a pretty consistent way to maybe make adjustments to this thing, drop that down in the comments. But I'm not really aware of one that will consistently work. Like I can get it to move a little bit, but for the most part, it stays where it is. However, I liked the knife enough, and I wanted to present the knife fairly, which caused me to get a second one. So I bought this for you guys to just double check for you. And I'm pleased to say that I'd say that that I can now say that I believe the fit and finish is probably pretty good, and the consistency is pretty decent, because in every other respect, these things feel very close to identical. It was just the centering, and it looks like while it may be hit or miss, it's a budget knife, and at least they definitely can get it right. Two things to mention before we start wrapping this up is, yes, there's a lanyard hole, and if you'll notice, this is probably important, the pivot is tooled on both sides. It is not free spinning. It looks like it is. It's not. I don't know why they did that, but they did that. Do with that what you will. The only real downside of this knife I found, and it's not really a downside, it's more me being picky, and that is why the standoffs and the liner aren't black. You don't really see the liner that much, but you can see it. The stop pin I can accept. The stop pin is going to get some wear and tear. Then again, they did the button lock, which is also going to get some wear and tear on it, and coated that. So realistically, there's no reason not to coat these things when everything else has been coated black or gold. It's a little bit of a miss in design. not being executed, but then again, it's a budget. I have confused budget and button so many times. It's a budget knife. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm paying $500 and see this glaring thing that just does not fit anywhere on the knife. But it is there. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't mind seeing them just coat all of the hardware. But as is, it's a pretty attractive knife. And I'm willing to overlook that little issue. I have to say, the detent for this is pretty good too. I mean, not detent, but I guess it's kind of the detent. It's the button lock plunge that's acting as the detent. It's pretty snappy. It's not heavy, but the blade is light enough that it sort of carries itself out, so it's good. Good design, good execution, more or less. And the budget area is very happy, because I'm happy to say that this is, what, a $50 knife? I got these when they first came out. I paid $40 for both of these. I'm absolutely ecstatic about that. These are great and very recommendable knives, even at the $50 price point, which I think is their standard price point. Maybe they're going to continue offering them at $40. I don't know. Either way, this is just a great knife. There's no one-and-done knife. They all offer different things. This offers a slightly modified Wharncliffe blade. That's not going to do some things that maybe a spear point or a different type of handle shape or thickness is going to do. There's no one and done, but this is coming close. It's trying. And it deserves to be popular for it because it is good. Honestly, yeah, if you collect knives, I don't see a reason not to get a version of this knife. Just to have, just to compare, just to say, you can probably pretty reliably get an experience with CJRB knives with this thing. I've never been ultra impressed by CJRB knives, but they've definitely stepped up their game as far as I can tell. And I may be getting more in the future if they keep doing things like this. And that's all I have to say about this. So we're going to close up here by saying drop some comments, your experience with the Pyrite, because a lot of people that like knives have probably had experience with this knife at this point because of how popular the model is. Hopefully your experience has been a positive one. Hopefully you've liked this video. And if you're still watching, drop a like or subscribe if you want. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.